the executive director of Where Clubs, co-founder. Many of you all know her. She's a wonderful, wonderful asset to MCA as well as to our community. And Wendy's going to demystify this process.
Yeah.
So Wendy, take it away.
I'm going to try. Thank you, Jay.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. So there is a lot of new things happening, right? So with the acceptance of the money from the National Endowment for the Arts, that opens up kind of a whole new can of worms, but we're going to kind of simplify what all of the new requirements are. There's new requirements for application, for your programming, and for your reporting. Okay, so we're going to kind of go over all of that today, but I wanted to start with something very exciting. This year, we're able to award grants up to $12,500. So the grant awards will be between $1,000 and $12,500 this year. So that's very exciting. So we want you to dream big. So that program or that project that, you know, has just been maybe someday, maybe this is the day, right? Maybe this is the time that you start really thinking about what something like this could do for your organization and for our community, okay? So dream big. I've already gotten some questions ahead of time about the UEI. So there is a unique entity identification that is required for all applicants of this grant. If you don't already have one, it is a fairly simple process. Unique entity identification number. It's a 12-character code, and it's basically the social security code for an organization. Okay, so any organization or agency that's going to be applying for any of these grants needs to have this UEI. You can go to sam.gov, sam.gov, and there will be 2 paths you can take there. It sounds scary, but I'm not a federal agency. My agency does not conduct federal business, but I want some federal money. So in order to have that bridge between the two, we need this UEI. Yes, ma'am. It is different from an EIN. Yes, this is completely different. So when you get to sam.gov, you can register your entity with the federal government, but you don't have to. There is another option in there for just give me my ID code. And there's a few clicks. It's a pretty simple process. Even if you end up not applying for these grants this year, you should have that just in your arsenal. If you formerly had a DUNS number, this replaces that, if you know what a DUNS number is, for those of you that have done federal business before, okay? There is a great resource on our website. In the resources tab, there's a YouTube video that shows you click by click on how to obtain your unique entity ID. It's a pretty simple process. It'll take you about 10 minutes. I recommend you go back and do that this afternoon. It's easy peasy, okay? Other questions about the UEI? Yes.
How many entities can you have under one umbrella?
So what they will do when they're giving you your code, they're going to verify your legal address of your name and address of your organization. They're going to verify that with the IRS. So each legal name and address that is registered with the IRS or on SunBiz would be able to obtain a separate UEI. Okay? Other questions about the UEI?
Okay, I just want to
Yes.
clarify. You said that you do not have to do the full registration for
Right.
SAM.gov.
Right. Right. Just get your ID number. And that's just the bridge so we can get the money to a non-federal agency. Okay? All right. Moving on. So the terms and conditions of the grant, some things have changed. So you will see on the website in the resources, there's a complete list of terms and conditions, but I'm going to just highlight some of them that might be different or some of the important ones. To apply for these grants, you must be a 501c3 or a public agency. And if you're a public agency, then you are governed by a school district or a municipality or a university or the state. So 501c3 or a public agency, you can apply.
I checked with Jay, and she also said she checked with the counting to do 501c7 because it's still a nonprofit.
So for these particular cultural grants, it is only a 501c3. So the NEA, this is a National Endowment of the Arts guideline, that they are only accepting 501c3s and public agencies at this time. Okay? Other questions about that? All right, we will verify, we go to sunbiz.org and irs.gov, and we do that in our verification when your application comes in. So we'll make sure that's all good. Your organization needs to be at least 2 years old. So 2 years as of the date of submission, okay? You need to have 2 years worth of budgets that you can show, and we need to see 2 years worth of project management history. You need to show that you are able to manage a project similar to the scope of the one that you're requesting, so that we know that this is going to be successful for you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I don't have my 501c.
Okay.
I've been doing this for over 6 years.
Uh-huh.
How does that?
So for your specific, I would recommend you connect with Jay after the training, and she can walk you through that specifically. Okay? All right. Yes.
What do you have to show that you're managing your?
Talk about a project that you've managed before,
Okay, that's all.
and that the budget didn't make you go into the red. Right? It didn't, cause any big trauma for your organization. All right? Good? All right. So we are accepting applications, one application per organization for this grant cycle year. So one app per organization per year. Okay? So one registered 501c3 with one UEI gets one application. Okay. Guidelines from the NEA regarding ADA compliance, you need to show in your application that your policies and your procedures and your facilities, in addition to this program that you're applying for, is all going to be ADA compliant. Okay? Just make sure you mention that in there. The organization that is applying needs to be in Marion County, or the program or project that you're applying for needs to occur in Marion County. Okay? So if you're University of Florida and you want to put on a festival on our square, that's great. Either your organization or your program or project happens here in our county. And July 15th, y'all. You're going to hear this date a lot today, July 15th, 2023, and please don't wait that long. But that is the absolute deadline. But if you submit it before, we may notice that there's something missing, or could you please clarify? We'll have time to get back to you and get you some feedback. So, the sooner you can get that to us, the more we can work with you on that.
There's been some adjustments to the upload process, because
Yes.
last year there was some issues.
We're hoping for a smooth sailing this year. Okay, thank you. All right, if you are awarded a grant, then you will be required to use a specific logo. So with your award letter, we will send you a digital artwork of a logo that's being created for MCA and the National Endowment of the Arts combination. This logo you'll need to use in every publication, promotion, flyer, online, whatever, in addition to the verbiage, sponsored in part by the Marion Cultural Alliance and the National Endowment for the Arts. So just so you know, if you're already working on some graphics, that there's going to be a logo coming, okay, if you get the award. And if you are a faith-based organization, thank you for your work. We're grateful that you guys are here. We want to let you know, too, that your program or project, you need to specify that it is open to all. Make sure that there's no religious discrimination, and that you're in compliance. Inclusivity is important, okay? So compliance and inclusivity for all. And just so you know, these are federal funds. So we're following federal guidelines regarding inclusivity, not state guidelines. You hear me? Okay. All right. So thank you for that. And in good standing with MCA. So if you're applying for a grant in the future, please make sure that your books are closed on anything that you had in the past. Make sure that your final reports are submitted and that you're a member in good standing and ready to move forward to the next grant cycle. And if you have questions about that, please connect with the office and they'll let you know what's still outstanding and what you need to kind of do to kind of clean that up from last year. Yes.
Just real quick, I
Yes.
just wanted to say that if you have to call during those times, they are very, very helpful.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
I mean, really, I mean, because sometimes you call and you don't get an
Thank you.
answer, but you guys
Yes.
have been very helpful.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Any question we've had over the years.
Good to know. Good to know. Jay has cards over here by the door. Anytime you have questions about, anything, budgeting, anything, please connect with us. We'd love to give you feedback and work with you. We want to see you be successful. Okay. All right. Speaking of reporting, so let's talk about reporting for a minute. Your final report is due 30 days after the close of your project or program. So if your program is happening on Labor Day, then 30 days after that, we need your final report. If your program doesn't happen until next March, we need your report 30 days after that. Okay, but we do need it within 30 days. That's quick. That's a quick turnaround. So what that means is during your programming or your project, please make sure that you are collecting data, right? You're going to need images, 3 to 5 images from the day of. It's really, really easy to just kind of jump in and be a part of the festival or the series or the art that's happening and forget about, you also have to be collecting data during the event, okay? We want audience diversity information need to be included on your final report, and images, and then of course any copy of any paperwork that you use that logo on, we'll need that in your final report too. And 30 days, I'm going to say that again. Okay. Questions about final reporting? And there's, website, it's all on there. It's good. Okay. Budget, let's talk about the budget real quick. We are going to ask for you to talk about your budget in 2 different places on the application in 2 different ways. We're going to ask some general questions about your performance budget of your organization. Just some basic numbers that you can pull off of years past P&Ls. There's like 6 or 8 little fields that you just fill in, general performance operational budget. Okay. Then there's going to be a more detailed budget section where we are going to ask for specifics related to your project or program. All right, in here is where you're going to detail every line item that you think you're going to spend money on in your project. Okay, venue, speakers, art supplies, caterer, whatever you're going to need. And then we're going to want to see how much of your own operational budget and in-kind donations, a combination thereof, that you're going to provide of the main expenses of your program or budget or project. And what you provide needs to be at least 50% of the total cost. So what you can apply for is what's left, and that's 50% or less of the total cost of your project or program. Does that make sense? So your organization and your in-kind donations and fundraising or whatever you come up with is 50% of the total cost of your project. Okay, 50% or more you're providing. Okay, but that's really cool because think about if you're able to apply, if your operations can come up with $12,500 with donations and your operational budget, then you can apply for a project that costs $25,000. That's a big number. That could be something really cool. So exciting. Yes.
Question. So if we put in, say, 12,500.
Yes.
The committee says, well, because of everything, we're only going to give them 10. That's fine too, or if we don't get what we asked for, we're done.
Okay. So Trish is going to talk about that more in her section about the what ifs, but we will address that. Yeah, if the award is not the full amount. Okay. Other questions about budgets. Your grant amount, again, it's a project or a program. It's not part of your operational budget. This is only for something that you or organization would like to do. Yes, go ahead. Don't feel bad about it. Get it.
For the in-kind donation, do you have do you invoice somebody like a dollar amount, or how does that work?
So let's say you have a line item in your budget for a caterer and it's going to cost $500, but Sonny's has decided to donate that to you. That's $500 towards your operational amount that you would have to come up with, right? Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So you'll come up with a budget for your event, and then if you can get in-kind donations, you can put those right towards. In-kind's included in your 50% or more. Okay. Other questions about the budget? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Trish, and she's going to talk about all of the eligibility and how we review. Thank you, Trish.
Okay, many of you have seen me before. I'm Trish Kilgore. I'm an agent with Roberts Real Estate, and I'm a longtime board member with MCA and now an emeritus board member. That's why I have a blue tag. Supposed to go with my gray hair, but anyway, so we've done this before, and many of you have done it before, and even if you have not applied before, and maybe you don't meet all the guidelines at this point, this is going to help you go back and talk to your board about what you need to build for next year when you do have 2 years or whatever it is you need, policies in place, or whatever it is you need to do that. This grant will give you a lot, or this application will give you a lot of boilerplate, not only for this grant, but for other grants, because we're complying with a lot of state and federal requirements. And so you're going to have boilerplate to cut and paste. Best thing. As long as you read through it, make sure it doesn't say somebody else's name. Done that. Also, Jay kind of glossed over that we saw this opportunity and jumped on it. Jay and a couple of our very talented friends sweated this program. I mean, they had to do a lot of work. So we thank you very much for your help on that. All right, so we've reorganized this partly because in years past, we have had people who submitted their application 2 days before the grant deadline with no budget. And they're going like, well, we didn't know we needed a budget. Well, there was a budget button. Now the budget buttons are in the middle. You can't not see the budget button. I don't want to not see anybody with a budget, okay? So you've got, as Wendy pointed out, there are 2 kinds of budget questions that you'll be asked. They walks you through. So please be sure you fill out all portions of the application. You've got the narrative, the organizational information that's required that just talks generally about your organization, how it's set up, guidelines, if you have policies in place that are necessary to the program. I'm going to start with one portion that is considered the application narrative. Again, please be sure you fill out all portions of the application. There are directions there if it doesn't apply to you. Just follow it. It's easy. So you'll be able to download the instructions and the resource tab, which will be at the end, which has a whole page full of resources, just like she was talking about with the UEI. There are a bunch of other resources there too for you to, most of them are YouTube or step-by-steps that you'll be able to follow. And then you'll be able to upload the docs. Yes, that has been an issue from time to time. And that's another reason, don't wait until July 13th to put your application in, because if there's an issue, we will move heaven and earth to try to get your information up where it needs to be because these folks here work very hard to confirm that you have put in all of the appropriate information, that you meet the requirements as far as they're concerned, and then the committee reviewers committee of reviewers can take that information and evaluate your application. Your first thing you're going to see is the application narrative. So you've probably all written a paper at some point. So when they give you the guidance question or whatever the list of questions is that you're saying, use it. It's there. It says what you need to put in there. Just make it questions. Pretend it's Jeopardy. What do I need to do to fill in this blank? Provide this information. And go down that list and make sure that your application narrative is there. Just follow it along. There's even a not applicable position there. We all love those. Easy to answer. Some of the fields do have character limits, but you can get around those. They're fairly generous, actually. The organizational overview is 12,000 characters. That's a lot of characters. One thing, no matter how famous you are in the community, do not assume that the reviewers know your organization. They may have been on your board in the past. They may be very familiar with it. But your organization has changed like ours has over time. Do not assume that they know anything. So when it talks about, give a brief history of your organization. Describe the administrative and artistic structure of your organization. Please follow these so that we know that everybody is playing from the same page. We have in the past had organizations that applied, and one person on the review committee had ever heard of that organization, and they were able to provide a pitch, and we did grant that organization. But that was because this person knew about it. So as a result, I think we actually ended up with a good board member as a result of that. We drafted somebody on. But just, we don't need to know your entire CV if you go back 200 years, but we do need to know what you do and how you include the arts or history or science in your organization. It also, again, 2 years of fiscal information and people and artists on your boards and involved. If you have volunteers, include types of volunteers, volunteer hours. A lot of organizations really depend on their volunteers, and well, they should. That's a good thing to be involved in. And then the fiscal condition of your organization. The last that we do want to support your organization, but we don't want the money to go down a rabbit hole. And none of you do either because you could have had those dollars. So be sure that your organization has a record of putting these dollars to good use and with responsible folks in charge. Then you have a proposed program or project budget. Again, fairly generous, 3,500 characters. You don't have to double space anymore after the period. You do know that? I come from the APA guidelines and you had to double space. So anyway, so there's a bunch of them right there you've got. So we're gonna, there are gonna be things in there that talk about artistic excellence and artistic merit. We're gonna work on that again in just a minute, so just know that that's there for right this second. Again, and to go back to somebody's question over this way, about your proposed budget and revenue sources. Wendy covered very well by the way, she's my new co-chair and a fairly new board member and just has jumped all over the grants project that includes the Corzeni grants and the For Friends grants and the Megan Boone grants. So we have other grants. If you don't get one of these, we got others. So anyway, with the budget, all requests may not be fully funded. So we got $80,000. We got almost 50 people in this room. All of you are not going to apply for $1,000 grants. So, so we have a finite amount of money that we can give away, and we want to give it all away. So if, for instance, you're applying for $10,000, because of the distribution of how how the committee ends up reviewing and distributing money, we may say, we can only afford to give this one $8,000. Can you live with that? Can you live with less than what your application is? If it looks like in your budget that you barely squoze out that 50%, we may say it doesn't look like this organization can support that on less money than what they asked for. Although there are going to be a number of you who have the background to be able to support that. So we may not fully fund every request. In the past, I believe after our review that we have inquired of an awardee as to whether or not they could live with less money. And we're not talking about slashing the budget. We're talking about trying to make an equitable distribution of funds. So just know that. Make yourself, honestly and above board to look as healthy as possible so that we say, yeah, and we have reviewers every year. I've been doing this for a long time, and every year they go, well, but if we don't give them the fully fund, can they do their project? And it's like, well, $8,000 is better than no $1,000, and so maybe they can do it. So just know that they are going to be looking at those financial figures that you give them. Other funding sources, that's very important. If you're involved in this community, you need to be involved in the community. Don't be like, we only do this and these are the only people we talk to. We're going to, get yourself volunteers or donors or people who are interested in your program or project from other organizations so that you can get other funding sources involved. They don't necessarily have to be people, they can be entities. So and there's tons of foundations. Every commercial entity has a foundation of some sort. Go after them. Again, in cash and non-cash. And just to confuse things on my previous statement about we may not give you enough money, if we have money left over at the end of the evaluation system. So we've gone through and we have $5,000 left. And it looks like organization A, that's a good, strong organization, and maybe they could use another $500. We may sprinkle that money around a little bit more. So maybe you applied for $5,500, but we might get $6,000. But that's probably not going to happen this year. In the past we have had a little extra money from time to time, or at the very end, somebody will come in and give us some money to apply to grants. So that's a possibility, but don't count on it. Okay. And then a biggie, and this has been true for 100 years, you need to have an evaluation process. Know before you get started, because that's going to be a big part of your of the evaluation that the reviewers look at. You're going to do a pre and post. You're going to do, everybody in the room got up and danced when nobody came in, but this one couple, like at Levitt, we always have that seed couple. They're wonderful. They dance, and the next thing you know, people around them are dancing. So how are you going to evaluate this? Who came to your program? What are their demographic qualities as well? It helps to know that. Take pictures of them. They need to probably know you're taking pictures of them, but they're gonna, you need to do that in addition to the logo information and all of that sort of stuff. Count heads. Some of you are going to have big programs where, how do I do that? Well, at Levitt, they have a little counter. Here, we have a little counter. Go around and count them. Have them sign in. And that way you can get their email address and you can follow up with them. A lot of tricks out there that you can do. So, but be sure that evaluation process is clear and that we get that data as part of your report at the end. So that we know what it is that what you're doing there. Again, we talked about accessibility and non-discrimination. Probably your organization has a policy. If you don't have a policy now, you probably should get a policy in your board regulations about accessibility and non-discrimination. And you might want to, here's one that you could probably use too in your programs. You might consider doing something in ASL, American Sign Language. Lots of people are you know, politicians, whenever the sheriff gives an update on something, he's got somebody there doing ASL. So think about that. Or if you have a descriptive service or audio for visually impaired people. You know, if you include something like that, think about your program. It may be natural to you, but it's going to be something that we don't know you're doing that. So do that. Okay, back quickly to on the evaluation of the applications. There's 3 scored sections. Artistic merit is 30 points. Artistic excellence is 40 points. And community impact is 30 points. What happens is the committee will individually score. They have little score sheets with all of the requirements, and they will go in and put 22 points, 30 points, 0 points, and they do that, 5 points. So under each of these 3 categories, they then are aggregated, and when the committee does, then we all meet as a committee, or as many as possible of us meet. We've got one that may be flying back from somewhere, but she's going to send in her information so that we can talk through her evaluations and comments. And we will go down the list as to who had the strongest application and how much money they're applying for, and then eventually we get to assigning the values. Again, there may be 5 of you out there that want to apply for 12.5. That's really good, but you're going to have a really strong program to back it up, because you got some really strong $2,000 programs out there that are, you know, they need the money too. So that's going to be how the committee breaks this up. So when we talk about artistic merit, and this is going to be on your information that you download as the part of the application, we're talking about the value and appropriateness of your program or project to the organization's mission, artistic field, artists, audiences, etc. Okay, so the value and appropriateness. Then you've got the ability to carry out the project, and that, I've already beaten that horse. So be sure you have the ability to do this. We're not reinventing the wheel here. It doesn't have to be a totally new program to you, but it does have to be a program that you can support, both financially and with staff or volunteers. Again, that's why the 2 years of existence and reporting on your accomplishments is important. You got defined goals and evaluation plan. I just stomped on that for a while. Then you have, if you have artists that are involved in your program, show how much you're paying them. Show them that you're paying them. People like to say, oh, come on by and draw us an upside down portrait, and then when you turn it over, voila, it's Elvis or something. But we want you to do it for free. Well, everybody's got to eat. Then you go to artistic excellence, and that's going to be the quality of your creative process, the works of art, if any that are provided, the education, artistic partners, and services. The point being that it's relevant to the audience or communities that the project is serving. So, get as high a quality people involved as you can, whether it's the artists, your board members, whoever. Impress upon them that this is a public program. We want to encourage the arts in Marion County, and so far we've grown a ton of people. We've done this workshop over the years from time to time, and it's been a few people, and now we have a room full. So we're happy about that. So get involved in your community. And then again, as we talked about with community impact, how much of the community did you involve? Did you involve people who or populations who don't normally have a great deal of access to the arts? I know there are a few of you in here who represent organizations who specifically target populations who don't have ready access to the arts. So design your programs accordingly and get out there and reach out to them. That's part of the point, is to bring in, sort of like Levitt in their underused spaces. If you haven't been to the Levitt Music Festivals on Friday night for the next 8 weeks, be sure you go. But that's the point, bringing people together, bringing music to the people who don't normally get access to it. So you want to bring in culture-based projects into those, into your program or project, and build collaborations and partnerships. That's going to be one of the strongest ways to get points on your application. Collaborations and partnerships.
Before you even start your application, I recommend that you go to the resources tab. That's your narrative. You want to start there, right, with the narrative, your forms, the videos that you need to watch. There's just great information because it's, again, federal grant money. It's a little bit different. So even you seasoned folks probably should take a peek at all of these, okay? I don't need to read all of them. There's several videos in there. There's a glossary, there's appendix, all of the terms and conditions, and all of the stuff that we covered today is there in detail for you to see. So deeper questions are going to be in there, or they're going to be on the phone, and our staff can help you
Also,
here
the
too.